Man, I know we might have some people in the comment section who did make the drive out to Abbotsford to watch this game on some $40, $50 tickets that were available, and that's cool. It definitely looked like a good environment. It's always a fun time heading over to Abbey, but when it comes to the game that we had seen in the building itself, the Vancouver Canucks versus the Seattle Kraken, this one, unfortunately, just based off of what I had seen on the live stream on Canucks.com, might not have been worth the admission. That was boring, and it wasn't really much of a hockey game until, let's say, the ending parts of the third period. It took a while to really get going, and you could even say that, for the most part, the game didn't get going. The Vancouver Canucks lose this game 2-1 to a Seattle Kraken team that got the game-winning goal in the last few minutes of the third. You also had yourselves a Seattle team with a few good names. I mean, Eeli Tolvanen was in there, Oleksiak, some guys you recognize like Bjorkstrand, the goaltenders Daccord and Chris Driedger. Vancouver had a few names in there as well that you, of course, can recognize. The Bessers, the Kuzmenkos, Höglander, Dakota Joshua, Beauvillier, Hronek, Soucy, some names in there. But this game, for the most part, was really boring and tough to actually pay attention to. I don't know if it was the lack of a scoreboard or no time showing up on the broadcast. It was just straight the video footage with some replays and Brendan Batchelor's commentary. That's it. Maybe it was that, maybe it was just the game itself, but I just couldn't get hooked onto this one. The game was slow, the first and second periods were just used trying to kill time and make line changes, and it's so bad that if you look at how the shots were divided in the first two periods, at the end of the first, the shots on goal were 4-2 for Vancouver. At the end of the second, the shots were 12-6. The Seattle Kraken had 6 shots on goal in the first 2 periods of the game. There was just a lot of dumping and chasing and board battles and holding it up on the boards, trying to facilitate play, going both ways, and it didn't really make for an entertaining hockey game. Batch and Risho were kind of joking on the broadcast saying that the teams are kind of entering mid-season form here. Either that or they just don't want to go out there and get injured, therefore their plays are not really all too ambitious. At the end of the day, though, it's 2-1. Seattle got themselves a first goal in the first period. It's Poturalski who gets a very good gift out in front, as Filip Hronek is the guy behind the Vancouver net that backhands it from behind the goal line right in front of DeSmith with nobody there. It's a pure giveaway, and Poturalski takes advantage. 1-0 is the score at the end of the first. You also had yourselves Carson Soucy at the start of the second, making it 1-1. Very nice shot. He drives it from the outside. It's straight in, right by the goalie. There was some traffic from Linus Carlsson. 1-1 was the score for a good chunk of the game, and then the 2-1 goal was scored near the end of the third period. It was, guess who? Eeli Tolvanen going out there and continuing his dominance against the Canucks. The game-winning goal came because the Canucks could not clear their own zone. Eventually, it's Fleury who comes in with the shot. Hard shot off the blocker of DeSmith. The rebound pounces out to the side, and that is where Tolvanen hammers it in. 2-1 is the final score of the game with about 8 minutes to go, and there were some other shenanigans that happened too. There were a few chances as well. Kuzmenko had a few spinorama attempts. You had Beauvillier with a nice rush or two. Cole McWard, I thought, looked pretty solid for the most part in this game. And then, of course, Casey DeSmith doing what he had done. The goals that he let in really weren't his fault. The first one was kind of a bad play by the Canucks D, wherein DeSmith had no time to prepare, and the second one was a rebound chance, which is tough to stop for any goaltender. However, when it comes to this game, you could say that this was more so of a tryout, just kind of one of the final steps in finalizing the roster here, because you had some names like Arshdeep Bains make himself an appearance on the power play. Atu Ratu looked pretty good. I thought that Cole McWard, as I said, was alright. Max Sasson was a part of some really good shifts, although he did get a penalty towards the end, which was not ideal. And for the Seattle Kraken, you saw more out of Eeli Tolvanen, which is definitely what you want to see as a waiver wire pickup from earlier this year. While this game might not have been the most exciting, there were a few implications that you can make about the lineup from it. However, all talk about the game aside, because, I mean, the game was just that, a boring hockey game that wasn't really all too entertaining, and I'll admit, I probably would have felt a bit ticked off if I was in the building watching that as the finished product, because that just seemed like an hour-and-a-half drive that wasn't really worth it, but I don't know, I guess just being in the Abbey Center was nice enough, but at the end of the day, you're all watching a hockey game, right? Part of the reason I thought this game was interesting was because of the lack of superstar players on the team. Now sure, you got Beauvillier, Besser, Kuzmenko, but one of the interesting parts about this game that was being discussed about heavily on social media before it started was the fact that the Vancouver Canucks actually promoted this game using some other players in their advertisements. Here's some context. Earlier today, the Vancouver Canucks had themselves a bunch of guys called up, and most of these names, you could say, are not regular Vancouver Canucks. These are all like Abbotsford, AHL guys. Here's the list of players that the Canucks called up today, or earlier this morning, I guess you could say. Artur Silovs, Philip Johansson, Max Sasson, Atu Ratu, Linus Carlsson, and Arshdeep Bains. You then had Taj go out there on Twitter asking the question here, did the Vancouver Canucks send everyone down to make it seem like they were going to play star players in Abbotsford to sell tickets, and then called the Abbey players back up on game day? It gets even worse because there's proof that the Vancouver Canucks actually advertised tickets for this game with guys like Quinn Hughes, who wasn't in the lineup, as well as JT Miller on their email, wherein he's not playing either. Now, I'm not going to go out there and make this a big deal because it's such a small detail, but Daniel Wagner actually did have a pretty good exchange about this on his Twitter account. Take a look at the tweet that he had made. Last week, the Canucks advertised tickets for their preseason game in Abbotsford with a picture of Quinn Hughes, who will not be in the lineup. A reply here says, I would imagine the team's marketing department is not privy to Rick Tocchet's roster decisions a week before a game. Probably not a case of intentionally misleading fans, if that's what you're getting at. Wags replies saying, I don't believe it was intentional, but it still feels disingenuous to advertise that your star players will play in Abbotsford and then send none of those stars. A reply asks again, does anyone expect a full pro roster for a preseason game in an away arena? Seems like you're nitpicking here, but then Wags replies saying, yeah, Abbotsford is a home game. And yeah, I think Canucks fans in the Fraser Valley were hoping to see Pettersson and Hughes, especially after the Canucks sent down pretty much everyone else this week. And then this plays into the other conversations because people were saying they had seen players like Garland and I think Besser at the Morgan Wallen concert last night at Rogers Arena, so who knows if the team would have been available after that. I mean, it's the preseason. Is it super important? Did the Canucks really mislead their fans with this marketing prep for the Abbotsford game? I mean, I feel like it's not really something that was a devious, intentional attempt to deceive everybody, but it is kind of disappointing to have these advertisements, you know? Oh yeah, I'm getting an email with my tickets. It's got JT Miller on it, and then I go to the arena, he's not there. It's just kind of a weird thing. I mean, I didn't really think it was that important, but I guess we could title the video in some clickbaity way to make you watch it, because yeah, this really wasn't that entertaining of a game anyway, so we kind of have to have a story here, right? Thoughts in the comment section below about the Canucks and the Seattle Kraken. It's another Eeli Tolvanen showdown. I mean, the guy gets yet another goal against Vancouver. He seems to do that a lot nowadays. Thoughts in the comment section if you were there. What was the arena like? What was the atmosphere? How was everything experience-wise for this game? And what were your thoughts in general about the Canucks and their play? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.